on their journey back to Valaris, which is far more complicated than it needs to be because of all the poisoning Feyre's gone through. She can't winnow and just get herself and Lucian there. So the two of them are literally like going through court to court. They're being chased and hunted. They get captured like a couple of times. But Lucian's brothers get them like on the border with the Autumn and the Winter Court, and Lucian's like, oh, they're all evil. And we get to meet Lucian's older brother, Eris, who's like the oldest of all of the High Lord of Autumn's sons. And he is snarky. That's probably the best word to use to describe him. He's all very sharp, handsome, redheaded, just like our Lucian. But he is snarky, snarky. And as they're like melting the ice, it's the tension's so good. Asriel and Cassian like land on the ice and protect Feyre and Lucian. And it's so good. There's such iconic fan art of like protecting their High Lady moment. But obviously, they get Feyre and Lucian back to Valaris. And the reunion scene is just, it's everything you want it to be. When Feyre is like chatting to everybody, Rhys is in the doorway, and she like turns around and goes to him and collapses, and they're on the floor, and it's like, oh, my babies. Feyre goes and visits the House of Wind because her sisters are now there. And this is the book where we get to see Nesta and Elaine take a lot more prominence in the plot, which is important because A Court of Silver Flames, the fifth book, is Nesta's. And the two of them react in the same vein, but differently to being turned into Fae. Nesta is predictably furious. She's awful to be around. She's a menace. She's pretty much mad at everybody, whereas Elaine is despondent. She's not talking, she's not eating, she's not sleeping. Everyone's very worried about Elaine. Because alongside the horror of being turned Fae, Elaine had actually gotten engaged and given her V card to a human man called Grayson, whose family hate Fae. So homegirl is engaged to a guy she knows isn't going to want anything to do with her now, and it's not her fault. Symbolically, it's them losing physical autonomy. It's a violation, this being turned into Fae against their wills. It's done to them in a very aggressive and unpleasant manner, and they're both responding to that trauma in very different ways. The Night Court in a circle, like properly reconvene now that Feyre is back, and they decide that their best bet is to try and coax Elaine and Nesta to help them fix the holes that are appearing in the wall between human lands and the Fae realm of Prythian. And the logic there is that Nesta and Elaine have literally just come out of the cauldron that makes everything. And they've both come out high Fae with some kind of magic. As I said before, the cauldron liked Elaine and gave her a gift. Nesta was so angry being put in the cauldron that she took something from it. So both of them now have gifts. They have their own unique kinds of magic that are separate to anything the High Lords or Feyre have in Prythian right now. And the idea is if the cauldron makes everything, the cauldron made the wall, Elaine and Nesta have just come out of the cauldron, their magic should somehow be able to help fix the gaps that are appearing. But as I've just said, those girls, they're not really in a fit state to be helping anyone. They need a lot of help themselves right now. We get to see Feyre return to her training, like physically building herself up, practicing her magic. Because she can shapeshift, Feyre's realized she can give herself wings, and the only problem is she doesn't actually know how to fly with them. So Asriel takes the lead on teaching her to fly, and we get to see how cutthroat Asriel is. He is not very forgiving. He is not the nurturing, friendly teacher that Cassian is. Asriel's approach is very much sink or swim. Throw the bird out the nest. And we love that for him. Feyre and Rhys decide that if the war is coming, and they are absolutely certain it is now, that they could probably do with some otherworldly allies on their side. So the two of them travel back to the prison from the last book and try and recruit the Bone Carver to fight with them in the upcoming war. And the Bone Carver says, yep, hunky-dory will do, but in exchange, I want an item called the Ouroboros Mirror, which is currently kept in the Court of Nightmares. So the guys say, yeah, sure, we can get you that. Surprisingly, and with a great deal of reluctance, Nesta is the one who agrees to go and try and help the group fix the wall between the human lands and the Fey lands. and she agrees to travel with them to the Court of Nightmares. Well, they're at the Court of Nightmares. Feyre's going to try and get the mirror, but the rest of them are genuinely asking the Court of Nightmares for aid. And Kia, who leads the Court of Nightmares, he says, okay, yeah, of course, we're part of the Night Court. We will join in this battle, but in exchange, we want access to Valaris. Everything's nice and lovely over there. We want to be able to go if we want to. Rhys agrees to this, and Mor flips out. Mor's family are not very nice. Kia's her father, and many years prior, Mor was engaged to be married to Eris, Lucian's eldest brother. Because everyone is very aware that Beren and his court is not a nice place, Mor decided that she did not want to be forced to marry Eris. So she convinced Cassian to spend the night with her and take her V-card. When Mor's father, Kia, found out that she was no longer a virgin, he knew that Beren was going to be furious, that the future Lady of the Autumn Court had been defiled in this way and had done it willingly. So Kia took Mor to the board of the Autumn Court, stuck a spike through her and impaled her on the ground, and left her there as a gift for the Autumn Court to find. Apparently, when Eris found her, the decision was made to leave her there to bleed out. And it was only the fact that Rhys and Cass and Azriel came and got her that she is even alive right now. This story is, however, disputed later on, so we don't know what we can and can't trust here. But an important lesson here is Mor and her dad, really, really bad relationship, and there is a very good reason for Mor disliking him as much as she does. We have, however, found out two other things that relate to Mor's love life. The first is that Azriel is and always has been in love with Mor. But he's quite quiet, he's quite reserved, he has never acted upon it, but everyone is very aware of the fact that Az loves Mor and it is not reciprocated. In fact, two is that it is not reciprocated because Mor is a lesbian. And she confides this fact into Feyre, which is quite significant because it's the fact that she hasn't confided in many other people, including some of her absolute best friends who she has known for hundreds of years. But Mor is pleasantly surprised at how accepting Feyre is of this. We find out, because of this reveal, that Prythian and this world at large is not very queer, friendly, or accepting. And it just adds to the tapestry that is Mor as a character. And lets us know a bit more about her relationships with the Bat Boys group. Rhys is her cousin, Cassian's one of her best friends, and Azriel is in love with her. Messy, messy, messy. But while they're at the Night Court, Feyre finds out that the reason everyone is hesitant to go near the Uberos mirror is that if you look into it, it will drive you mad. So for the first time ever, we see Feyre kind of not rise to the plate. She's like, no, do you know what? I'm gonna swerve this. I don't want to be the one to get the mirror. I don't want to get it right now. It's not as if the fight is just about to happen. So she's like, hey, do you know what? We've got time. I am going to put a pin in this. Let's circle back to it later. When they get back to the western side of the Night Court, Amren reveals that in order for the Bone Carver to actually get out of the prison, he needs to have a physical body. He needs to be bound in a form, which is quite insightful because Amren is the only creature ever to escape the prison, and she's never explained how or why she did. It's all very suspicious. Meanwhile, homeboy Lucian is just kind of pottering around. He's not really got a job to do in the Night Court, and so he wants to be helping Elaine heal, but she wants nothing to do with him because, as far as she's concerned, he was heavily involved in creating the scenario she's now living through. But one of his pieces of advice, which I love, is get her outside. Elaine is a gardener. She loves flowers. She's that kind of gal. And he's like, let her go touch grass. Which, in my opinion, is healing for pretty much anything. Just go outside, touch some grass. I've just realised the light's gone off. Let me turn that back on. I don't know when that happened. There we go. I'm so sorry. I don't know if I kicked it just then or if I'd knocked it earlier. What is happening to me today? Anywho, safe to say, Elaine's not doing great. And because she's not doing great, my boy Lucian is suffering as well. Feyre is still trying to learn how to fly. It's not going great. And in order to motivate her, Azriel shares the story from the last civil war of the Fae. Nefel managed to save Miriam of the Miriam Dracon Durian love triangle mess thing, even though Nefel's wings were small and deformed. So Azriel is very much of the mindset of you have no excuse. Work through it, learn how to fly. Now, when Feyre and Nesta are in the library of Valaris together, they are attacked by some of Hybern's ravens. And as they run further and further down into the bowels of the library, they find this big, dark, seemingly malevolent pit. And a creature lives down in the bowels of this library called Bryaxis. It's basically just this dark cloud thing. Fun fact, Cassian and the Bat Boys in general are terrified of Bryaxis. Apparently, Cassian went down there once, refuses to go back. Like, it's the one thing in the world that he is absolutely most terrified by. But Feyre, as they're being chased, makes a deal and she says, hey, Bryaxis, if you get rid of some of these ravens, I'll give you something you want. And it turns out what all Bryaxis really wants is some company. Like, it's down there in this pit and it's got no one to talk to and no one to do anything with. And so it's like, okay, I'll kill these creatures that are in my library and attacking you as long as I can kind of have a friend, which is surprisingly sweet. So obviously Feyre agrees to bring Bryaxis some company in exchange. Everyone comes to realize that Elaine's gift from the cauldron is that she seems to have become a seer. Homegirl has the gift of sight now. Everyone just kind of thought she was going crazy, but no! She can see otherworldly things. She can see the future. She can see... Actually, I don't know what she can see. She can see more than anyone else. And she tells them that there is another mortal queen somewhere, and that she has been sold to an evil lord called Koshi. This queen, wherever she may be, has been cursed to turn into a firebird every night. And as Elaine shares this information, she's obviously quite concerned about this young woman sold to an evil lord under a spell. And Lucian steps up to the plate and says, do you know what? I'm going to go off. I'm going to lead the mission to try and save this mystery queen. And now Lucian has something to do other than twiddling his thumbs. And we love that for him because much like Feyre, Lucian's a doer. And it's information that's been given to him by Elaine. So it's kind of like, this is bothering Elaine. I will take it and figure out what to do with it. The Inner Circle find out that the Summer Court, you know, where my homeboy Tarquin lives, is being attacked by Hybern. And none of the other courts of Prythian are coming to Tarquin's aid. So obviously the Night Court rush to help him. They find out no one else has accepted the call for aid and that the court is basically being slaughtered. Mor and Feyre, they end up fighting their way through the palace, and Rhys goes out like the king's fleet ready to fight the king of Hybern, only to find out it's an illusion. It's not the real army at all. After this battle, the team actually get to talk to Tarquin, and it's really awkward because they stole the Book of Breathings from him. We actually have quite a sad moment. Tarquin has sent these red rubies that look like dragon eggs to the Night Court, and there's one for each of the guests he housed during the trip. So one for Amren, one for Feyre, and one for Rhysand. And these are known as a symbol of, no, there is a bounty on your head. You do not return to the Summer Court no matter what. You are an enemy of the Summer Court. Everyone knows this because Cassian already has one from when he destroyed a random building whenever he was last there. And Rhysand actually got really upset at being sent this, like, you are uninvited to my party forever for the rest of your life kind of gift. Because he really liked Tarquin. He would have thought. He was like, oh, I actually thought we could be friends. Shame that Rhys met him as part of a mission where they were going to steal from Tarquin. But you got to see that little side of Rhys being like, oh, thought I'd made a friend. And now my friend doesn't like me. You get to see that, like, actually play out in person when Tarquin's like, yeah, you are all liars and thieves. Thank you for coming and saving me, but that was really sucky. Like, your actions have consequences. You can't treat people like this. And I love the fact that, you know, Rhys is fallible and, you know, actions have consequences in this world. There's politics at play as well as, oh, we need to save the world. Doesn't excuse you treating other people poorly. And Tarquin calls Feyre out because they were really getting on. He was all flirty with her, and he's like, you were nice to my face and then used my own magic to steal a book from me, Feyre. Not cool at all. So now Feyre's upset as well as Rhys. Because no one's come to Tarquin's aid, everyone's very worried, like, the courts clearly aren't working together. And if an adversary like Hybern comes over, they clearly need to unite and put forward a united front to protect their own lands and the human lands to the south. So all of the High Lords are called to a meeting in the Dawn Court, where Helion is High Lord, because it's seen as kind of neutral ground. Helion's pretty much friends with everybody. To their relief, all of the High Lords do come, so we get to see the group of 7 all together. Even Tamlin and Beren turn up. And no one was really certain if they would, because obviously Tamlin, not a big fan of Rhys at the minute. Beren, just a POS. But the meeting is a mess because Tamlin cannot help but be shitty. We get the absolutely iconic line where he starts making sexual comments about Feyre, and instead of it being Rhys who kicks off, it's Asriel, and he's like, don't speak like that about my high lady. And every woman reading the book dies. My high lady. Oh. But yes, Tamlin just cements himself as this really bitter, resentful man. Not cool, not cool at all. His behavior in this meeting is particularly poor. You know, homeboy's really butthurt. But the High Lords agree that the Spring Court really needs evacuating. There is something wrong with the wall there. Hybern is setting up a base there. They need to get all the innocent people out. And now that they know there is like this poison that's been put into the land, but also like someone like Feyre is being forced to consume, they all need to start taking an antidote to protect themselves because they don't want Hybern coming over and everyone being powerless. But Nesta gets really wound up and she says, guys, we need to head home. Something's wrong.